In this video today, we're about to learn a little bit about the mindset of Betty Shabazz. That's Malcolm X's wife. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.
003, Team A, Sound 102.
Dr. Shabazz, what should young black people know about Malcolm that we don't already know? What is his legacy?
What should young people know about Malcolm? I think one of the most important things in view of contemporary society that they should know about his internal strength and discipline, and understand that that a lot of people can climb the mountains and deal with people on a very affluent level, but don't understand what is happening in the valleys. And that if they are going to be future leaders, that people are going to have to understand the diversity of people, ethnicity, political, religious, And if you really look at our society today, you find the Baptists preaching to the Baptists, and the Methodists preaching to the Methodists, and the Buddhists to the Buddhists, and the Muslims to the Muslims. I think religion will have to cross those various lines and deal with people on an ecumenical basis or level. And I think that people will have to put humanity above the power of politics. We need to understand the struggles, the whole situation of struggle, as I said before, the challenges and the resources that face people, not just in America, not just next door, but all over the world, have people in such conflict for power that they will level a country, neighborhoods, civilians, regardless, women and children and old men and old women, for that power. That we are going to have to come together as people and understand that whole humanitarian dilemma, and understand where and the importance of power, So that I think Malcolm had conquered all of that and was moving towards those extreme ends that have our country and the world, as a matter of fact, so divided today, that I think it would be important for young people to understand all of that and know that the answers are here on earth. The answers are within our grips. But if we don't have the internal fortitude or internal strength or integrity, a loyalty to ourselves and other human beings, that we might go to sleep and not wake up as a world people. And I think if young people understood that, and the fact that they have a responsibility to deal with themselves and find answers to those challenges that confront us all, and I might say getting worse.
When was the first time you saw Malcolm X speak?
When was the first time I saw him speak? Okay, because that was a newspaper. He started a newspaper. Well, the first time I saw him speak, I was a student, and had gone to the mosque with a friend.
And what were your reactions?
Well, I thought that what he had to say was important and had a lot of validity. I had not been accustomed to his kind of phrasing. his kind of clarity, his kind of openness, I thought surely, something was going to happen drastically, because I was reared by, my folks were Methodists, and we lived a very limited kind of lifestyle. And it was church and school and work and committee meetings and that sort of thing. And I could appreciate and follow his talking about the world, various places on earth, but his openness and his inclusion of the African diaspora as part of all of this was a bit new to me, enlightening, enjoyable, like, hey, I am in this picture after all, I'm not an appendage, I am not a part of the begging class, the welfare class, not that I was reared to think that, but once you leave home and you're exposed to the broader society, you begin to think that your very existence is perhaps not welcomed, and so that it was a delightful meeting, and I enjoyed meeting him, obviously.
Now, what kinds of philosophies did he have in the Nation of Islam? Can you give me a story that illustrates how you learned from him there?
Well, at that particular time, it was he was talking about togetherness, and he was talking about Elijah Muhammad, who my parents knew in Detroit, Michigan. The terms were not so favorable, but of course, I just interpreted that as the lack of understanding of my parents. But he was involved in raising funds to take Elijah Muhammad's sons from their various jobs, non-professional jobs, to have them work with the father, so that he spearheaded a drive that would provide enough money for their salaries.
Tell me about a time where you lacked understanding.
And of course, his whole philosophy was rooted in history. Malcolm was the son of a Baptist minister, and his father was a Garveyite. And of course, at that particular time, it was not the thing to do to be a Garveyite. And so that he would use to explain not only the religious sense, but a historical sense of our people, to explain the need for this or that, so that he explained in not only religious terms, but historical terms of why it was necessary for Elijah Muhammad's sons to leave those menial jobs and work with the father to be more helpful, because the nation was growing. And I might add that Malcolm was directly responsible for that growth. When my husband got out of prison, Elijah Muhammad had 6 mosques, and populated by older members. And even Elijah Muhammad said in Philadelphia, before my husband was expelled from the movement, that he single-handedly was responsible for the growth. And at that particular time, that the Nation of Islam had mosque in every major city in the United States. So that he explained, his explanation to me was new, because usually people dealt with the Bible and kind of left it at that level,
How was he different?
We used to change magazines.
Okay, then
10:04.
we're going to continue our discussion.
Okay. What was different was that Malcolm not only dealt with the Christian Bible, which most,
It's not that one.
It's not that?
It's unplugged.
Okay. All right, let's go. Continue, Seiko. Sorry,
What-
Can
oh,
you ask the question again so we'll start from the beginning?
Okay, then we're again talking about the teachings that you were learning from Malcolm
mhm.
and how it was different.
Well, what was different was that Malcolm not only dealt with the Christian Bible, which most of us were familiar with, and most people in this country are familiar with, but he also dealt with the Quran, and he also dealt from a historical perspective. And as a matter of fact, it was appeared in the New York Times through a minister who was named Henry at that particular time. I believe he died, and I hope God have mercy on his soul. This interview, it said that Elijah Muhammad said that the blackness that was brought into the Nation of Islam was brought in by Malcolm, and it was never intended. But you have to understand that Malcolm's father was a Garveyite, and he remembered that, and it could have been an ode to his father.
How was he different, the public man from the private man?
Well, I don't know if he was really different in the sense. I would say that he smiled a lot in private. He was very gentle and understanding, yet firm with his children. I found him an excellent husband, but I guess his long years in prison and then getting into the religion, he was extremely disciplined. And, sometime it was just no let up, just kind of all business. But his,
Story around that.
could I do what?
Tell me a story around that illustrates that.
What, how disciplined
Yeah,
he
you
was?
said extremely.
Well, he was. He was extremely disciplined. I mean, it was just unbelievable. He said 5 prayers a day without fail. He used to write me from various parts of the world to say to me that, please pray sometime. And I wrote him a letter back, very quickly, and I said, if you do your job, I won't have to pray at all. Which was, probably what I should not have done, but I just thought I would do that, But he was a very disciplined man. And he could read the average difficult book in 3 hours, 4 hours. He just did a lot of things. It's just really a remarkable person.
After his expulsion, what changes did you notice in him?
Well, he behaved the same way. He was goal oriented, and he decided that this was the time for him to travel, to do some research, to find out some answers for himself. He had at one particular time been very disappointed, not only in the movement but in the leadership. That a lot of things that he had heard, even when he first entered the movement, that there was a possibility that they were true. The reason that the leader was run from Michigan, that various people showed him pictures and talked and cried, about what had happened. So that he felt that the movement was a good movement. The structure was good. That one needed to be disciplined and more caring about people, but that he needed to do some research. So that he was invited to the Summit Conference, the first time that a Black American had been so honored to come to the Summit Conference and represent black people in America. And of course, he traveled throughout Africa and the Middle East and part of Asia, and made some startling discoveries. And of course, at that particular time, there was a lot of things going on in this country, and one of them was the irritation in this country by decision makers that he should not have been allowed to travel that far, and not knowing that he was going to meet the kind of people that he met. And so then they started gathering forces to anoint a leader that would supersede him. So there was, of course, in the American papers that they had a poll that said he was not a leader thought well of, and that other people were much more popular with the people. And then we got a call one day that said that someone was going to get a grand prize, and it was an attempt to set leadership, not only against him, but above him, that what he was doing was not appreciated by his own people, and this, that, and the other. So
Let's stop for just 1 minute, please.
I want you to be honest. From so far from what you've listened to within this interview, let me know your thoughts about Malcolm X in the comments.
I don't really know if Malcolm's original agenda from the knee of his father ever changed, actually. He perhaps was able to discuss it more openly and intellectually. In the time that I met him, he said freedom by whatever means necessary to bring about a society where people of African descent are recognized and treated as human beings, regardless of where they lived, as long as it was on earth. And if you really understand that, and a lot of people defined it perhaps negatively. They talked about militancy, but it wasn't really militancy in a negative sense. It was the internal strength, the fact that I'm a human being. His whole notion of changing the civil rights struggle to one of human rights, that if you changed it to a human rights struggle, you would have your civil rights, and that you would have more support. And of course, when he came back from Africa, a lot of the leaders felt that his thrust was wrong, that he had no business in Africa, he had no business in the Middle East, he had no business in Asia seeking support. He should concentrate his time in Mississippi. And of course, I think now, retrospectively, that his analysis was correct, that of human rights. And of course, different nations are cited for human rights violations. But black people are still abused, and ours is still in the realm of discrimination and civil rights, and it really needs to be taken to a higher level. So that I think his analysis were correct. I think that people, or I should say decision makers at that time, I'm sure that they recognized that there was a great deal of validity to what he was saying, and just wanted a little more time to get a lot of things in order. I can remember when they were really criticizing him severely for wanting to change it to a human rights struggle, that Arthur Goldberg threatened to take Russia to the World Court at that particular time for just the 3 million Jews in Russia because of human rights violation. And I thought it was remarkable. It was honorable. I mean, that's, as a leader, that's really what he should have done for his people. And but I also thought Malcolm was correct to take to discuss the whole possibility of taking this country to the World Court, the UN, where such items are discussed for its maltreatment of the more than 22 million at that particular time black people. And of course, he was demonic and all of the bad names that could be thought of. But I think that that he was correct.
Would you share with me a story of your family and?
We have to change
Okay.
this.
Good.
Okay.
Rolling. 10:05.
Well, I don't know if I really have any Malcolm X stories or not. I just know from reality that he contributed personally to the caring for 3 or 4 families because he did not take the time to really counsel the men in the family. They felt they couldn't work for white people because they were, racist and this, that, and the other. And he would say to me every time of the week when I was to get my allowance along with the children's nursery money and the food money, and he would say, as soon as I get time, I am going to counsel, the brothers. I'm going to get them all together because I know you would like to do more things, like go shopping, right? And somehow he never got around to it. And after his assassination, I could be walking down the street and I would see one and they would cross on the other side of the street, And I guess it must have been maybe about 5 years ago. I saw a brother, who was one of them, who apologized for his lack of strength. And I said to him that money is not everything. You can encourage people or be around people or whatever, but it was that he needed at that point for someone to be around him. And I think of all the people that helped me in my own survival of will, that
Tell me in the comments, who helped you be who you are today?
I often think of him and smile. I don't know if that's a Malcolm X story or not, but it's a part of history and it was something that was real.
And the last days of his life, again, was that change in him as he was moving around so hurriedly?
Well, yes, there was a change only in developing or ironing out the rough spots of his new morphology. That, number one, a lot of people wanted him to come to their country to help, to advise. I was in Europe on my way to Hajj, and I met a man who said that we have been observing him for the last 4 years, and quite frankly, we were delighted when he was expelled from the movement because the religion, Elijah Muhammad's Nation of Islam, was not considered as Orthodox Islam, and they wanted him to help them in their country. But he felt that his responsibility was for black people because most of the leaders somehow had disappointed black people, and he wanted at least to see a directional gain. We have dealt in the relationship, high visibility, high relationship, but we have not gained on the task level. And he was more interested in the task level. You can like me, but you need to understand that I have certain rights as a human being. So that I think his goal was to change the thinking and the attitude. Just very simply, if you change the thinking and the attitude, you can have a bloodless revolution, actually. So that the challenge still faces us. All he did was hold up a mirror of what had been going on in this country, and people really could not take that, so that they said that he was the god of violence, and he did not commit any violence in his lifetime other than his death, and he didn't commit his own death. So that I think about Malcolm sometime when I see the young men on the corner, or all of our young brothers in prison. Of course, there are women too, and the lack of grounding of our people, flighting to this or to that without due course, that this is mine. And I do wonder, where are we going, And I sometimes observe people, not all of the leaders, but who are more willing to please others than themselves and their people, please in terms of that internal stability, that this is mine. That is necessary, so that we need perhaps to relook at our needs and assess where we're going and choose people to be our leaders on those bases.
So, hold it for a minute. Yes.
Well, his love of humanity, his willingness to work, the fact that our young people need to accept the responsibility, all young people, not just black, but all young people need to accept the responsibility to do what is best to salvage civilization. We talk in terms of nuclear warfare, and we think in terms of drugs and polluting the sea, and everything is destruction. Surely people of goodwill can come together to salvage the world. I wonder now, though, with Malcolm gone, they don't have anyone to point to. And I look at all of the violence and the discrimination and all of the people who was against Malcolm. Somehow they have not gotten together to get rid of all of the things that ail us, so that Malcolm is at peace. He did all of the things that he had to do and should have done. I would not have had it any different. But I wonder about all of those people who are still involved in a high relationship type of leadership. I wonder where they will lead us. And you look at the world, it is really in torment. And Malcolm's dead 25 years. So that he was totally correct in his assessment. And I think that people need to know that.
Right there.
Let me know in the comments, in what direction do you want to be led to?
Thank you very much. Showing that strength and power of Malcolm.
No, well, I think you should ask me that
Yes,
question.
yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
because I'm not.
That question I'm asking you, that strength and power of Malcolm, can you share with us an incident that you observed?
Oh well, I wasn't married to him at the time that you were talking
during the
about
time that you were married.
the demonstration,
Mhm.
but I was close to it,
Mhm.
and of course, the police had wrongly abused one of the men who was considered a brother. For no apparent reason other than mistaken identity, and of which there was a settlement. But everyone was just very frightened of that whole group of black men who were later joined by some women. And it was felt that Malcolm was.
Keep rolling.
Start rolling.
I'm rolling.
It's era.
He's rolling.
Okay.
Don't roll.
I'm rolling. You talk. Okay, good.
10-06.
It was felt that no black man should have that kind of strength or power to dispatch black men in that kind of demonstration. And of course, it was, I thought, really not the proper thing for people to say, maybe to think. Because what we want to do is to have people to have allegiance to themselves. You know, everyone fight for the allegiance of black people. And if it appeared to me that because they had allegiance to Malcolm at that particular time, that he was considered a threat. And a lot of negative dialogue began to emanate that these black men and women adhered to his instructions to go or to come. Everyone fights for the allegiance of the black people, you know. But when blacks have allegiance to black, that seems to be still considered very dangerous when it is the most natural there is. Of course, there was no fear on their part either. And that was one of the things that I found with my own parents. When I was going to a southern school and came home and began to talk about the discrimination and the difficulties that I had when I would go into town. And my parents really could not deal with it because, and I understand and of course love them no less, but they were afraid. And a lot of people do things because internally they've been bred on fear. Fear that if they show allegiance to blacks, that something would happen, you see. And so my parents were very fearful, and that was the one very striking thing about Malcolm, that he had no fear. And I am, of course, not as strong as he, but I am very grateful that I had the conference experience to be around him for years and experience a black man who was goal-oriented and had a love for his people and made his contribution as he should and as we all should, but without fear. He feared God, and that was it.
How was this man able to move from the streets of Harlem to a university like in Oxford and be able to talk on all different levels to all different people?
Well, he was well read. He was well read. He just was a prolific reader. All the classics, every day. He could deal with a difficult book in 3 or 4 hours. I mean, and his analytical skills, self-taught, but was very sharp. And I can remember he would go through various skills at home, and I couldn't remember who came, what time they came, who said what or whatever, And he says, girl, when I was in prison, there was so much time that if a fly flew through a window, you would not say the fly flew through the window. You would say the fly flew through the lower right-hand quadrant and landed on its front legs. I mean, he was just very observant and very analytical.
2 other questions. The 1967 visit to Ramparts magazine, the Black Panthers escorted you to that magazine. Can you describe that incident and your feelings around it?
I had no feelings. I was really surprised that sometime later I read where someone said that I was really in fear. I didn't even know what was happening, let alone, how could I be fearful? I just felt I was in the capable hands of these black men all dressed up militaristically. I didn't know who they were. I was invited there for a program, and as a matter of fact, I had gone to sleep on the plane, and I woke up and we were landing, and when I got outside, there was all of these police, I would imagine, lined on each side of the little area where you walk from the plane to the terminal. And when I saw them all standing there, on both sides, shoulder to shoulder, I went, oh my God, someone was on the plane. And I didn't see them, and I kind of criticized myself for going to sleep on the plane. And as I walked to the end of that walkway and made a slight right and saw the brothers standing out there dressed militaristically, I went, oh, okay, I understand. And there was a young man reciting part of the Constitution about carrying firearms, and I don't know, it really did something to me. I just said, oh wow, that's just really fantastic. And so that I got in a car and was swept away. And so that I certainly didn't have any fear. It was just an experience. And I did not know until afterwards what was happening. And we went to Ramparts magazine, and then they said, okay, we must go now. And I got up and I left. And it was not until we got to the second place that I was told what had happened. And so we were all safe, so, Plus, I was going back to New York anyway.
And in 1972, you went to the Gary Convention.
Yes.
And I'd like for you to tell me what your thinking was and what your experience was.
I was very pleased that, number one, that organizers had the sensibility, correct sensibility to have the conference. I thought it was a very good thing. I still think it's a good thing when people come together and discuss their own agenda. It was brought out at the conference that people please vote in terms of self-interest, not in terms of people who had paid their way, and it was a big joke. And I thought, oh my goodness, that people would come to the conference not for their own self-interest, but black people would come to the conference with the notion for someone else. I found that very, very strange. I think that if you are free people and an adult and thinking about your own responsibility, and you have the right of the vote, that you should vote whichever way you choose. So that I saw nothing wrong with the conference. There was some negative press, black thing, and of course it was kind of given a notion that if it was a black thing, it was not a good thing, which I think is not such a good way to promote things. I thought it was healthy. If there are differences, if there are questions, why not? An open forum. The Polish union leader is supported with his differences. Why not any other ethnic group leader supported? So I thought it was very good and said so. Some people say, it failed. No, it didn't fail because people came together and crystallized their thinking. And probably if there was any failure, it was that it didn't happen the next year and the next year and the next year.
Betty Shabazz shared a lot of wisdom, and hopefully we learned from it. If you caught the gemstones I left in this video, I hope they gave you something to think about. Let me know what stood out for you. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.